Hi everyone, I'm Virateshwan, working as a Boomi developer in TJ Software Solutions. Today, I'm going to discuss about categorizing data level and connection level failures. It is a use case on event streams message property. The contents that I'm going to be discussed are what is event-driven architecture and advantages of event-driven architecture, introduction to the event streams and architecture of the event streams, categorizing data level and connection level failures demonstration. So, what is event-driven architecture? Event-driven architecture is an integration pattern. It decouples two applications and allows two applications to communicate with each other asynchronously by publishing the events and subscribing the events via the event broker. In this particular example, instead of Salesforce directly attaching to the database, we have introduced an event broker, that is Boomi event streams. So it will publish newly created events to the Boomi event streams. And we need to configure the consumer process, which consumes the newly created events and sends it to the database. And what are the advantages of the event-driven architecture? It is loosely coupled. It decouples two applications, and there will be no dependency between the two applications. Asynchronous communication. The publishers are going to publish the messages without waiting for any response. Reliability. In case of any process execution failures, the data is not lost. There are mechanisms to retrieve those messages, and these messages are known as deadletters. Coming to the scalability, so we can onboard new applications by simply creating consumer process without affecting the current integration process. Now, what is Boomi Event Streams? Boomi Event Streams is a reliable, scalable, cloud-native service to implement event-driven architecture. This is a service provided by the Boomi, where the publishers can publish the messages, and the messages are managed in the Boomi cloud. So the publishers can publish the messages, and consumers can consume the messages from any Boomi account. Using this, we can achieve the event-driven architecture, and it decouples the two applications. Components of event streams. Initially, we'll be having our Boomi account. In the Boomi account, we'll be having environments. In the environments, we can create a topic. These topics are the named channels for transmitting messages to the consumers. And in the topic, we need to create the subscriptions. This subscription specifies how messages are sent to the consumers. And finally, we have the consumers who consume the messages from the subscription. Now, producer is an entity in the Boomi event streams who publishes the messages or the events to the event streams. These producers are classified into two types. One is shared and exclusive. In case of exclusive, only single producer can publish the messages. Coming to the shared, multiple producers can publish the messages to the Boomi event streams. So along with the publishing the messages, they can send a key value pair to the Boomi event streams. So they can even send the value dynamically using the dynamic operation properties. Coming to the consumers, consumers are the entities who consume the messages from the Boomi event streams. These consumers can be classified into three types. There is shared, exclusive, and failover. In case of exclusive, only single consumer can consume the messages. In case of shared, multiple consumers can consume the messages. Coming to the failover, multiple consumers can attach to the same topic, but only one is actively consume the messages at a time. And that particular consumer is known as primary consumer. In case of primary consumer deactivates, then other consumers will consume the messages. Now, categorizing the data level and connection level failures. Data level failures occurs during the validation, transformation, or mapping of individual records or documents. And connection level failures occurs during the loss of connection or timeout or authentication failures. So while establishing connection with any third-party application, then the connection level failure occurs. So in case of any connection level failures, then we can perform retry operation. Now, let me take you to the Boomi platform to show you the use case on the categorizing data level and connection level failures. So initially, let me show you the event streams. So event streams is a service provided by the Boomi. So if you select the event streams, So we'll be having this user interface. So in the Boomi account, we have the environments. In the environments, we need to select our environment. And in the environment, we can create a topic. Topic are the named channels that is used to send the messages or transfer the messages to the consumer. We can select the topic. Once we have created a topic, we can create subscriptions. So the subscriptions specifies how the messages are delivered to the consumers. So this is how we'll create a topic and subscription. And let me show you the process that I've built. So this is the publisher process, which is going to publish the messages to the Boomi event streams. So Boomi event streams is a connector. We need to configure connection component and operation component. In the connection component, we need to provide the environment token. In order to get the environment token, we need to go to the event streams and we need to select our environment. In the environment, we need to select settings. In settings, we need to create a new token. We can select the name of the token and we can select the expiration date. And we need to click on create. So once the token is created, you can simply copy it and we can paste it over here. The configuration of the connection component. Action is produced to publish the messages, and operation component, we need to provide the topic and access mode. Access mode is exclusive. That means single publisher can publish the messages. So once we are publishing the messages, we'll be having active consumer who consumes the messages. So the start shape is configured with the Boomi event streams, and the connection is a reusable component that I've used. Action is listen in order to achieve the real-time integration. And when an event is created, in order to process immediately, we are making action as listen. Coming to the operation component, we need to provide the topic name, subscription, and subscription type in order to consume the messages from the event streams. And in case of if the consumer doesn't consume the messages, in case of any process execution failure, then in order to get the messages, we are configuring this option. If you set the transacted acknowledgement option, if you check the checkbox, and if you provide the maximum concurrent executions value greater than 0, then the messages are sent to the dead letters. And we can perform maximum retries as well. After performing the specific number of retries, if the consumer process fails, then the messages are sent to the dead letters. Dead letters are the messages that are not consumed successfully by any consumer process. So after that, we have configured try catch. So the failure trigger is all errors in order to handle the connection level failures and data level errors. And try catch, we're transforming into the database format and inserting into the database. So we're performing insertion operation in the database. In case of any failures, that is connection or operation failures, it comes to the cache path, and we are publishing the events or the messages to the new topic. So we are reusing the same connection component. Action is produced to publish the messages, and coming to the operation component. So we are providing topic name and access mode is shared. That means multiple publishers can publish the messages. And along with the payload, we are sending messages as well. This will be in the key value format. So we are sending error message and execution ID. In order to provide the value dynamically, we can make use of dynamic operation property. In the dynamic operation property, so we are providing the try catch error message and execution ID that we are getting from the execution property. And we have designed one more process in order to fetch the payload or messages from that particular Boomi event streams. And here we are categorizing the data level and connection level failures. So initially, the error message is stored in dynamic document property. And while establishing connection with the database, so there are the connection level failures. So those connection level failures are separated using comma and stored in dynamic document property. Now in the scripting, we are checking whether the error message contains any of this comma separated value. So if it contains, we are sending the result into the dynamic document property. So once we do that, we are making use of decision shape to check whether it is a connection level failure or not. In case of connection level failure, it goes to the true path, and we need to perform retry operation. To perform retry operation, we are sending the message to the main topic. So this connection component is a reusable entity. Coming to the operation component, we are providing the main topic name. It is not a connection level failure. It comes to the false path. So it is a data level failure. In case of data level failure, we can perform retry operation because it fails again. So we are consolidating the data and sending an email alert to the stakeholders. So let me show you the database table. So this is the database table that I have configured. It has 3 columns: customer ID, customer name, and phone number. For the customer ID, primary key constraint is applied. For the customer name, check constraint is applied, where it checks the length should be greater than 3. And for the customer phone number, not null constraint is applied. This is the payload that we are sending to the Boomi event streams. We have total 5 records. In the 5 records, the 2 records is issue with the data. So one of the record is violating the not null constraint, and the other record is violating the check constraint. And let me execute the process. So here we are publishing the events to the Boomi event streams, and so since out of 5 records, the 2 records is issue with the data, so this will fail the integration process. So let me go to the process reporting and let me refresh it. So when event is created, it must trigger a consumer process. So it triggered the consumer process, and we have 2 failures. We have 2 data level errors. And now let me make the connection level failures by going to the services, and I will select the MySQL database and I'll stop the service. The payload now I'm sending to the Boomi event streams. Now there is no issue with the data, but it is issue with the connection. Since the message is sent to the Boomi event stream, this will trigger the integration process. Still executing. Yeah, this is triggering the consumer process. Now we have sent message. We have sent the 2 messages where there is a data level errors and there is a connection level failures. Now this particular process categorizes the data level errors and connection level errors. In case of connection level errors, it sends the message to the main topic. In case of connection level data level errors, it consolidates the data and sends an email alert. Now let me execute the process. Before executing the process, let me restart the database service because we are performing retry operation. When we are performing retry operation, we need to make the database connection as up. Otherwise, it fails the integration process once again. Execute the process. This particular process categorizes the data level and connection level errors. So using the scripting, it differentiates these 2 errors. See? Yeah. So the connection level errors are performing retry operation, and the data level errors are sending as a mail alert. And let me go to the database and check whether the records are inserted successfully or not. Records are inserted successfully. And let me go to the mail and show you whether we are getting data level errors as an email alert or not. So these are the records which has issue with the data. So this is how we'll categorize the data level errors and connection level failures. And this we can perform retry operation on the connection level failures. Coming to the data level failures, we cannot perform retry operation because it fails the consumer per second. So this is how we can categorize this. That's all from my side. Thank you.